hear
We
you
are.
guys out.
Okay, guys, we're live.
I didn't get home till 6.
I know.
I left at 7:30 this morning.
We have really.
That traffic in Bend, it's just...
My husband calls me on the way home from work every day, and I hear about the horrible traffic.
I gotta tell you, people in Texas are the nicest people.
We are.
Right up until they get in their car. And then it's like, over.
We're live, right?
It's for real.
Okay,
Yep.
I think I'm ready.
I'm from Michigan.
Hey, Matt, do you need battery?
Need what?
Do you need the battery?
All right.
No, I'm good.
Welcome to the regular meeting of Helotes City Council, September 23rd, 2021. It is 7 p.m. We'll have the invocation today by Council Member Sanders, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you don't mind, stand.
Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us all together again to serve our community. Please give us the wisdom to make good decisions and to give us the strength to always give our utmost best for the residents of Helotes. In your name we pray and rejoice. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right. Excellent. We are without microphones, so we'll try to speak loud. Give us sign language if we can't hear us. We'll try to speak louder. We are to the citizens to be heard. Do we have anybody signed up? Online or in person? Okay. Well, that takes us to consent agenda. Items number 3 through 11. We're looking for a motion and a second to approve all consent agenda items number 3 through 11 as written.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve consent agenda items 3 to 11 through 11 as written.
How do we pull something? If we wanna discuss it?
If you would like to pull something, you can.
Just number 6.
You'd like to pull number 6?
Do we second that?
Well, go ahead and have a second, and we can.
Ask a question
Is it
unless you really want to pull it and have full-fledged discussion.
No, I don't think that's necessary. It's
Just a clarification. Well,
yeah.
let's take a second, and then we can do a clarification.
in the bullet points in section 1 approved, there's commas and then the and so there's a period after Wells Fargo. So, I mean, for me, I'm just used to comma, the last one and then, the period. This would end if I wrote a contract at Wells Fargo. It's a thing for me, and then the question I had is there's no other firms around here, because when I looked these guys up, if this is what I looked up, they're out of Austin. They merged with somebody out in Ohio.
Okay, so let's take a second to open it up for discussion, and then we can clarify, and then we can make a secondary motion to pull if we need to. But do we have a second to open to discuss? Sanders? Comments, sir?
No, I didn't have any, but now I'm kind of interested.
Councilmember Sanders?
I have no issues.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So, Section 1, approved the following entities are authorized as brokers, dealers for the city of Helotes, colon, and then Loop Capital, commas. We got commas all the way down to Stifle Nicholas, comma, and Wells Fargo, and that would end it. And so, if we're going to use commas and periods, it really should be RBC Securities as the period, UBS Financial, comma, and then go from there. So that's just, how I draft a contract with one of my clients, but I don't know if it matters in Frank's here. And then the last thing is, so I looked up the firm that we're using in this resolution here, and if Google Business is correct, they're looks like these guys are out of Austin. They have some facilities up in Dallas, and their website redirects now to somebody in Ohio. So I'm just curious if there's no other vendor, at least within Texas, or if I'm incorrect in who that is.
So we have some national firms listed there, et cetera. So they have regional, national offices, and we're dealing with the brokers and dealers for public investment, it's specific. It's not, for example, your local Edward Jones in your 401k, as it were. And so when you're dealing with instruments of public debt, there's a handful of specialized brokers, dealers. These were some that were selected, and of those, one you saw that's up in Austin. That's not uncommon. Our work with, for example, with our pension with San Antonio Fire and Police, almost all New York City, Los Angeles, Chicago, various areas that we go up and deal with that. So when we're looking for writing debt or dealing with it, we have to have a selection of brokers that we work with that handle that type of specialized.
No, I'm talking specifically this Patterson group here, Patterson Associates. So if that's who I'm thinking about, then they have an office in Austin, and they looked like they were spreading out with Texas, which is fine. But now they merged with somebody in Ohio, so it's kind of like, keep it local kind of thing,
Well,
if possible.
so we're listing potential dealers, brokers to work with. So from that list, do you want to shed some light?
We're talking about our financial advisor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's who actually we have a contract with. We want to go back out for an RFQ for another financial advisor. We can't. The merge just recently happened, like you said, so we can go back out. We have a current contract with them, and that is who our financial advisor is as of right now.
And their contract is gonna end next fiscal year, or?
It's an annual contract that renews.
Okay. I mean, I don't have any. I mean, obviously, it stuck out in my mind. It would be one of those things where I would prefer to have, at least somebody in Texas.
Which we can take a look at when the contract renewal, whether we renew or not. But at this point, for what we have to approve for the list of approved vendors brokers, dealers to work with.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Frank, the periods and colas and commas and all that in section 1 in the draft.
Are we talking about the resolution or?
Yeah, so no, resolution, the draft, and section 1 approval. There's bullet points, and that lists every brokers, dealers. It uses commas and period, but the period is
I
after
see what you're saying.
the second to last, or third to last.
Yeah.
Is this a punctuation correction that we can?
They're typographical errors.
Typographic.
They just
Those
need to
could
be
be
fixed.
correct, those could be what we call scribblers errors, so they can be corrected in the final
Yes.
resolution.
Other than that, that's it. That's all I have for that one.
Typographical errors can be somebody local.
All right. Any additional comments, concerns, questions? So we can make a friendly amendment to approve with the noted punctuation
Yes.
modifications.
All right.
Are you amenable to that
Yep, so
friendly amendment?
let's, I'd like to make an amendment to the motion that with cleaning up the punctuation in item number 6, removing inappropriate commas and periods. We approve the consent agenda on items 3 through 11. And I'll second.
Okay. With no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. This brings us to the mayor's report, which we have an update on our building maintenance at City Hall. I'm happy to announce that our Public Works department has worked. We obtained some bids, and we now have an awning over our front door on the admin side. Hopefully that will prevent our flooding. As you can see, we're in the process of getting a new floor. Again, thanks to the talented work of our Public Works department. It's looking great. We look to have that finished. And if you'll notice, we do have some new equipment that's going up. This is part of grant work that's through this one came through
It's actually our PEG money.
our PEG money, I'm sorry, not grant money, through our PEG money that really is focused on really only a very limited number of things we can spend it on. So use it or lose it. So we're using it. This will bring us to item number 13. Looking for a motion in a second to discuss and take action on item number 13 is written.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we discuss and take action on item 13 as written.
Councilmember Massey, second by
Second.
Councilmember. Okay. Yes, would you like some comments?
I just wanted to, I looked through this and basically changed the headings from grade and step policy to compensation policy, and I think that's a really good idea because it makes it a little more flexible. If you have a grade and step policy, then you kind of need to stick with that, and I always think that these types of manuals should be a little more flexible in that kind of respect, so I do like that was changed. I did not see anything other than, there was one other thing that I saw besides the typos that you corrected, that one typo, and that was under pay and salary. And I started looking under this. Let me see, what page was that on, where it talked about, because pay and salary are two different things. Some employees are salaried and some are not. So is that the reason that you use the word pay
Yes.
rather than salary? So that was my only actual, comment or question. But I didn't see anything that jumped out at me that wasn't a good thing to change. So that's where I stand on that.
Okay. Councilmember Salazar?
Yeah, there wasn't anything that I saw that really jumped out at me as, okay, that's weird or anything. So just kudos for keeping things updated and us doing these reviews is so important so that we stay current with everything.
So, thank you. It's important to notice that what you were talking about, we had a step pay that sometimes caused some problems when we were given a percentage increase. If you're getting a 2.5% increase and it didn't quite get you enough to get to the next step, apparently there would have been some problems with people not getting the full amount of raise that was allocated. By moving to a salary range, which we are going to further and eventually get administratively approved and distributed, this will give us the ability to be able to give the precise amount of raise that has been authorized, so nobody gets shortchanged by a step program. Any other comments, questions?
No, sir.
Okay. All in favor of approving item number 13 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to discussion and action of item number 14 as written. Do we have a motion and a second?
Sir, I move that we discuss and take action on agenda item 14.
Motion by Sanders, second by
I'll second.
Salazar. Okay, Councilmember.
So it seems like pretty much a formality. I do have a question. So it sounds like this company, this EMS company is going to be located physically somewhere here in Helotes. Do we have any more details? Like, are they actually going to have their ambulances here physically, or is it just like an office or headquarters?
From what we hear, they're gonna have the ambulances here. Their ambulances aren't the box ambulances, they're more the vans, because they actually transport the VA, patients to the VA hospital for like dialysis, stuff like that, not for like emergency type. It's more for their appointments.
Okay. I was just trying to kind of visualize where they would actually be located, which,
They have not found a spot as of right now, but this is the first step before they can even locate a spot.
so for me, the key is, and Chief Moreland was the seal of approval for me, where he said this would not conflict with our EMS services. So I support, it's just another business that's gonna be operating here in the wonderful municipality of Helotes, so I have no problem with it.
It's really more of a staging location for quick access. And again, from San Antonio's EMS, when we're out there, we get called for emergencies, but a lot of times we get called out for transporting a patient from this rehab facility to this rehab facility, and that's not appropriate EMS. So that's why when Chief talks about it not being a conflict of interest, we're not vying for 911 fees, we're not vying for emergency or billing. You shouldn't be calling 911 for a transport. you should be calling a private transport. So it's really just more, okay, their company is elsewhere, they have some business in this area, so the ability to be able to park in the corner of Walmart parking lot or wherever they're gonna park to get dispatched out for quicker response.
So I was hoping actually that they actually have a facility here where, you know, so property taxes are being paid
They're actually gonna-
and workers are buying stuff here in Helotes and they're not competing against the Helotes EMS, so
They're actually wanting to look for a facility here. That's exactly what, they were telling Chief Moreland, is they're gonna look for a facility here.
that's all I have.
Okay, so, I was excited that we're gonna have, this particular business here, supporting our veterans, which that's a cause near and dear to my heart. So I'm like so pro this, yay. Excited to have this business that we can call like, hey, that's coming from out of Helotes and we're serving the veterans, getting them where they need to go. So that is my comment.
All right. Thank you very much.
I don't have anything else.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How many people are gonna be involved in this and where are they gonna, if they don't have a building right now, where are they gonna have their vans?
It's actually just at the beginning, they have to get this approval and get state approval, and then from there, the next step is actually going to look for a facility. They're gonna come down, and look for a facility, and then go from there.
Okay.
This is just the first step of it. They have to get municipality approval before they can get state approval.
I got you. Okay.
So, and I think I read where they're bidding on this contract.
Correct.
Yeah.
So they need this letter in order for them to actually get their request into the VA system. If they get selected, then this all will happen,
Okay.
the way I understand it.
That is correct.
Anybody else? All right. All in favor of approving item number 14 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item number 15 will be the first reading and discussion of an ordinance of the City Council of Helotes amending municipal code of ordinances, chapter 34, environment, by adding article 7, noise and sound level regulation. We need a motion and a second to discuss.
I motion that we conduct the first reading and discuss item number 15.
Councilmember Crossan, second by
I'll second.
Councilmember Merchant. Yes, sir.
So I don't know if I got a few things here, so I don't know if they're really applicable or not, and just reading too much into it. But in section 34-92, paragraph I in the draft ordinance, it references the definitions of the weekdays, but we haven't defined what the weekdays are. And so I'm assuming that we're talking about like Monday through Friday, because technically every day is a weekday. And then the definitions of daytime and nighttime hours are defined but in section 34-94 paragraph A, but we haven't defined what the daytime and nighttime hours. We do reference it throughout the ordinance that we're talking about 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. But you know, specifically, I want to say that this section said the definitions shall apply or something like that. 3494A. Yeah, the definitions of daytime and nighttime hours is the last sentence. Shall apply, and we haven't defined it in the definitions. And then now, personally, I was reading this, and I'm a little concerned in terms of when I'm able to do work on my house on the weekends, as it's written. So it kind of makes it seem like, you know, if we're going with weekdays and inferring that this is only a Monday through Friday kind of thing, I'm not really exempt in that any resident trying to work on their home on the weekends is possibly breaking the ordinance here. That's how I interpreted it.
So, kind of address these as we come through. One of the things I did want to suggest that gets clarified is in the purpose of this ordinance really comes from neighborhood noise, and there's an exemption for music venues, etc. But generically speaking, weekday to me should be specifically outlined as Sunday night through Thursday night, because it's going to affect work day, and so this would be up to you all to clarify specifically, so that on Friday and Saturday night it can be, hours can be extended, and again, that's part of the discussion. What hours do we want to set for when all of a sudden we can give, because we at the police department gets complaints from noise, and we don't have anything to be able to stop a huge giant party in a residential area that's at 3 o'clock in the morning, because there's nothing that says that they can't do it. So all they can do is stop by and ask pretty please, and we need to be able to provide them some sort of teeth to them knocking on the door, but at the same time we don't want it to be so strict and onerous you can't do any work on your house, right? If somebody's trying to roof their house at 2 in the morning, well, that might be a problem, right? But we got a decibel level in there, so we're talking about a constant noise, and we also have an exemption for music venues, entertainment venues, etc., that are established, which, I believe, and we have somebody, an expert in the area right here, I don't think they go really much past midnight anyways on a normal basis, but that's where we can take a look at Sunday through Thursday night. We want to say 11 o'clock, but on Friday and Saturday nights we got till 1 o'clock in the morning, something to give some leeway. And this is part of what you guys are up for discussion on.
On the construction, what it is not, we're not saying you can't do construction, we're saying if it impedes that noise level of construction. If you read what it says, if you continue on the bottom, it's basically, if it impedes a certain noise level after 7 p.m., you know what I mean? That's what this is saying. After 7 p.m. on that weekday, if it impedes that noise level, then that becomes a nuisance. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
No, I mean, so if I'm out there, if somebody other than me who doesn't have the office at home, fights Bandera traffic and gets home at 6:30, they got half an hour to, you get their sawzall out and do whatever they got to do. That's kind of, to me, I don't think that's appropriate. So I would say I get it, because at the same time I could bring in a crew of contractors, and sure, I think as judge would look at this and say, 7 p.m. you're not the resident, it's reasonable person standard, right? But if I'm out there with a sawzall and it's 8:01 and I'm trying to put up new joists in my garage because I got home at half hour to 7, that gives me 30 minutes to do that before a neighbor who may or may not like me calls HPD. So that kind of, it concerns me, unless that's how, if I'm interpreting it incorrectly.
Well, number one, you're going to have to take a look. That sawzall is not going to break that noise barrier, number one. Number two, it's at a set amount, and again, this was what we're here for discussion purpose, right? So when you've got,
Sawzall is an example. When I was the HOA president, I got HPD called on me. I was ready to get a tooth pulled because somebody lived next to our gate, and there's an emergency beacon on that thing, and Dustin came out there. So they're gonna call. This has happened. I mean, this has directly happened to me where somebody didn't know. They had an assumption about decimeters. It took us like a month to find which department had the decimeter. We finally got out there and it was a non-issue. So I mean, it's just one of those things where if we're going to account for, the 9,000 plus residents, especially Bandera when it's a parking lot, maybe sawzalls. I mean, circular saw or something like that with a decimal outside of this. I just don't know if this is really appropriate in terms of my house and my work schedule and who, all the other working families out there.
Okay.
Well, and that's it. That's what I got to say on that.
So,
well, what would you say if we moved it to like 10 p.m.?
Oh, well, I mean, that'd be nuts
That'd
too.
be like, okay, 10 p.m. y'all just, no more construction. Okay, go to bed.
I mean, so I thought the tool would be, like the exemption part, but that might not be appropriate where it's resident. Because right now there's a crew working on what I assume is a home that somebody's renovating before they move in next to me, and they're out of there around like 5, which is fine. But what's the tool? What's the mechanism I have if they stay there, until 10? Right now we're trying to fix that, right? And then we got decimals in here, and we're fixing that. But what if it's my home?
Mr. Mayor, may I say something?
Please.
I think that we have to think in terms of the entire city, all the citizenry of Helotes. We're not up here as city council people thinking about our own situations particularly, although it might apply to a few other people. I know that, I think, as you said, somebody complained about something you did after a certain, they thought it was too loud. You found later on that you realized it wasn't. Of course, we didn't have a noise ordinance, but now we do. The police are going to come if someone calls because they think you're making too much noise after 7 o'clock. They'll have their decimeter and they'll be able to say, oh, you know what? This is 30 dBA. It's not 70. He's fine. And then your neighbor's going to have to deal with it. Sorry, it's not over the limit. That's pretty high, these limits.
Mm-hmm.
And you may get some people that are going to complain, but I don't think that we need to change it to 10 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night because you get home late or you work. I just think it's just not right.
Well, no,
We got to deal with everyone.
Yes, and so first and foremost, I did preface that because I did say that I'm lucky to have a home office. I did say that those who are stuck on Bandera, what are they going to do when they get home at 6:30 and it's 30 minutes to 7? And I did say that when I was the HOA president of the whole community, that a resident called the police on me for whatever reason because of the emergency signal. So I'm trying to bring examples that I have had that are relevant to this discussion because I am looking out for everybody who's going to be stuck on Bandera. At least I would think I'm looking out for them when I say that. Because there was a point where I did have an office, and I would be one of those frustrated people too.
So they're all going to come home, these people that are stuck on Bandera, and start using chainsaws and all kinds of stuff after 7 o'clock.
I don't know, but it's a
Well,
scenario that I don't.
This is a scenario that reasonable people would say it's probably not a good time to do that. There's going to be another time that we can do that on the weekend, perhaps. So anyway, I just think it's.
Which circles back to what are the definitions of the weekdays?
So this is something we do need to define. What is a weekday? And we're going to have to submit that. This is just a discussion. We're not voting to approve on it right here. But I would suggest that you consider Sunday through Thursday as being weekdays and weekend being defined as Friday and Saturday night, where typically people aren't having to work the following morning, typically. The other thing is because it's discussion, we can take a look at, you don't like 7 o'clock, that's maybe a little too early. Lord knows we've had our fair share of, what do I want to call it, weather-related emergencies, flooding, roofing, tornadoes, hailstorms, and, if you got a crew working there to finish up and they got to go till 8 o'clock, is 9 o'clock too late, is 7 o'clock too early? This is in your hands for, submitting, and then you all vote on it. So it sounds like you're wanting to suggest a little bit later hours. The intent here with you have your decibels, you're talking a constant noise of 70 decibels, which is a significant amount of noise. It's not a circular saw and you cut one thing. You got to think a concert going that loud. Floors might reach that level across the street or a couple houses down, etc. But when you're talking about a constant level of somebody playing a rock band at 90 decibels at 2 o'clock in the morning, okay, here's where we're at. A sawzall is never even going to come close to that. Skill saw, if you're standing next to it, yes, but unless you're running that for 20 minutes straight, 30 minutes, 40 minutes straight. So the question is, what hours do you want to set? What days do you want to set? And I would encourage you to think in those terms.
And it does say in case of emergency, it's exempt.
So we have exemptions. So we have emergent construction exemptions. But I would not be out of line, Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, that as individual council people contemplate this, that they could submit their suggestions and thoughts directly to the city administrator for inclusion in our next reading.
Yes, sir. In fact, I would encourage that it be direct, just one individual, or the council individual, send it directly to the city administrator, not consult with anybody else to review
Correct.
the meeting. Yes, any proposed changes. And I do agree that we probably should clarify what weekend day is, so
Yeah.
that it is clear for the individual who's issuing the citation and so.
Friday and Saturday is the weekend, that's what I think. Thursday through Monday, or Thursday, yeah, Sunday through Thursday, those are work days, at least for me. I was looking at item 3493G, prohibited noises enumerated, like no yelling, shouting, hooting, or whistling, or singing in residential or noises. Does this happen?
Oh, yes.
From
So
10 p.m. to 7 a.m. We can't.
Yes.
we
No
have
whistling down the neighborhood after 10. Okay. Got
so
it.
we have a couple particular.
Okay, I was just curious
Yeah.
about it. That's what
So
it's-
this
I mean,
would be the
it's-
case if you
it's
think about
okay.
if you had your own. Believe it or not, there are several residents that have their own stages,
I mean, I've been known to sing, but
bands,
They
events.
Singing, just prohibit singing above a certain.
gotcha.
noise level.
Okay.
Noise above noise level.
Thank you. All right.
I've actually had people, a person call me and say that, and they would send me videos
Okay,
of
I mean-
3:30 in the morning, and it is really
Obnoxious.
obnoxiously loud from
Okay.
across the valley and across over.
I
So
was just curious about this.
so,
That's in there. Bit.
3
All right.
the idea here is not to put the kibosh on anybody having fun, and that's why we have to take a look at our hours, right? Extend it a little bit later, but the other part, we have to foster a
gotcha.
respectful community so that people who go to work the next day can actually get some decent sleep, you know?
Okay.
So,
That was-
shouldn't be running your skill saw for an hour at 3 in the morning.
And don't be
8 o'clock at night, if that's fine, 9 o'clock, whatever, submit individually without talking with each other directly, straight.
But I would like to talk a little bit about the time, because
Okay.
I think, the more I'm thinking about it, I think 7 PM probably is a little early, especially during the summer when it stays light till 8:30.
10.
So, I'm thinking, I would be willing to go to 8 or 9, and I would like to hear what anyone else has to say about that, so that we don't, all of us are separately could send her different times, and she's gonna be in the same boat she's in now. Which time is she gonna put?
Right.
So I think that we should all discuss the time.
I think 8:30 is appropriate. It's right in the middle. Still light out at 8:30. Well, it won't be today, but for the summertime, most of the year down here, we're in the south. It's light mostly till 8:30. I think that's appropriate.
And I think it's a good balance. Because it can change in the future, right? As complaints come in.
Right,
So,
and that's for even a construction crew, if someone's putting, if you're okay with 8:30, it could always come back, if we get a lot of complaints, I can always come back and say, our police gets a lot of complaints, once they tell me, I can give you all a summary of a report saying, we got this many complaints. If there isn't any, then I'll come back with you with saying that we need to change it.
Can we make it strictly for the 8:30 for homeowners, and only the homeowners can make that their own noise and not construction crews?
Well, it would,
Would that be too difficult?
I think it's more appropriate just to do construction in general. But again, this is decibels from a certain
Right.
distance away. So you might have a night crew. For example, I used to run own a construction company, and back before the strip burned down, we did finish out there. We worked overnight, but the noise we weren't making noise. So you can't prohibit activity. You're just talking about an amount of noise. So crews might be working around the clock for something, but the loud noise and
inside work, you're not gonna.
inside work, etc. So this is all about, by the time you get to a distance away and you're still at 70 decibels, that's a lot of noise. You're talking traditionally, concerts is really what's going to be, or outdoor music, or
Right,
speakers that are just constant. Guys that are in there painting or doing their flooring overnight, or even demolition. Well, the loud demolition that stops at 8:30. So you got construction in general.
Okay, that sounds good.
So I'm good with 8:30, 9 o'clock. I think you have to take into consideration federal holidays as well. So a federal holiday changes a lot of people's behaviors, unlike a general work day. So you can see where this this starts to morph out into what if, but I would like to take that into consideration as well. Federal holidays being considered not a traditional weekday.
the night before.
The night before.
The night before a federal holiday.
So that would be,
Like considered a
We
weekend.
treat it as a weekend.
That would usually be a Sunday night, wouldn't it? Because most federal holidays are Monday.
Thanksgiving's on a Thursday.
Oh, Thursday, that's right.
Christmas is on every single one of the days.
Fourth of July.
4th of July could be any day.
Okay.
The evening before a federal holiday, it would be considered, you know,
It
more
would be,
standard
it would
time
be
period.
considered like a weekend,
Yes.
yeah.
So you guys choose the word.
I like that.
That's what,
Yeah, that sounds
that'd be
good.
my recommendation.
Yeah, I was just thinking more like 8 o'clock. I just remember when my children were small and they had to go to bed early because they have school in the morning. My next door neighbor has a 5-year-old, so I'm sure his bedtime is, probably around 8. It has to. So just to take into consideration babies,
Reasonable.
toddlers, the smaller children, that they do need to go to bed a little earlier.
Okay.
I'm good with 8.
Okay. And for music venues or private parties at the houses, what are we thinking here? Again, can't have.
This is on we're talking about weekday noise.
Well, we're talking about construction at that point.
Oh.
We have, when you're having a concert outside or you're having a party, you have people over. People often aren't arriving until 8 or 8:30, and you can't say, sorry, you can't have your stereo on. It's 10 o'clock on a Friday night. The question is there. In all reality, this whole thing is about 2 or 3, maybe 4 instances citywide where it happens a lot. You've all had a neighbor that maybe had a Christmas party and they're allowed a day. Well, they deal with that, but dealing with this would really originated out of Airbnbs, renting out to people coming in. So try to keep that in mind. What we're dealing with, somebody's going to rent a place, they're going to have a party, okay. You can't really shut things down at 7, 8, 9 o'clock on a Saturday night. 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock on a weekend, in my mind, that's a reasonable time. Midnight on other nights, weeknights, you might want to say 11 o'clock,
Where is that on here? I'm trying to find it. The different prohibited noise enumerated. Is that where it is? For you're talking about for the
Music venues.
For
The music
the music
venues.
venues is K commercial establishments. They can up until midnight. They have an exemption. They're defining K, and then there is
what section of it?
3493.
EFGHIJK. Commercial establishments, care for resident property.
So they
Unreasonable loud and raucous noise.
and
Yeah.
So that's venues, but we're really talking about private houses
talking
having
about
stages and parties, outdoor parties. So again, this part's of the discussion on weekends, weekdays. So weekdays, where people are working next, probably, that's, you have an Airbnb, somebody's having a party, okay, that's fine. But what point do you say, okay, now you're causing a public disturbance?
No, I think during the week, 8 o'clock is it. On the weekend.
Well, it shouldn't be any earlier than what your construction is.
Well, that's true.
Okay,
So,
okay.
8 o'clock?
On the weekends, though, are we talking, midnight, 1 o'clock? Again, this doesn't
I know.
affect a lot. The real problems on
The
the,
lady who complained a lot about the Airbnb next to her where they would have these raucous parties all night long.
Yeah.
I
The-
think it was 10 o'clock that she said that she would call the police because it was so loud at 10 o'clock. And-
well, she,
but that was during the week. That wasn't even on the weekend.
so she called me multiple times in that particular instance. She was like, I'm fine at 1 o'clock on the weekends, that's fine. And I'm fine at 11 or 12 during the week. It's the 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning where it's still going on. And there was really, that's the intent where we started investigating what do we need to do. And the problem is you can't say, okay, for this address and this address and this address, here's the rules, right? We don't really have a problem with, a constant problem throughout the city of Helotes of people partying till 3 o'clock in the morning. Really everybody's working 2 or 3 or 4 jobs.
So what I hear you you're saying, Mayor, is that maybe there isn't a distinction between commercial and residential, that one time kind of fits both, depending on whether it's a weekday. We have the weekday timelines, and then you have the weekend, right? Whether it's residential or commercial, or residential near commercial. Is that what I hear you saying?
I'm
The
thinking,
second part?
this is why we're open for discussion. My personal suggestion is that you put a midnight cap on the weekends and then have an exemption for actual music venues that might stretch over because they're on normal stretch of business and usually in a commercial area, not in a neighborhood.
But what it is that you're saying that so we're giving exemptions to venues to go over this decibel. That's what we're saying, that because venues are gonna go over this noise limit.
Correct.
So the exception is that venues can go over this noise limit until 12 a.m. We're not saying that anyone else can go over this noise limit.
Correct.
Now, if you want us to, then we can add that you can. We're saying that no time, even if it's 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, doesn't matter what time it is, they cannot go over this limit.
So, and I'm with you, so it should be written as such, and then with the caveat, only a commercial business or entertainment or whatever is eligible for.
That's how it is written.
Okay.
It's actually written that way, in which that the only time that anyone can go over this limit is during construction, at this time to this time, or emergency, you know what I mean? Those are the reasons, or a commercial venue before, 12 a.m. Then from 12 a.m. to 7 a.m. they can't.
I just think
Agreed.
we should go with this and just see what happens. Because we're not gonna be able to deal with every scenario that's gonna happen. And again, the biggest complaint I think we got was from the Airbnbs, having these raucous parties. That's people who move near here, up in the hills, they hear Forest Country Store, and they know, okay, if they're gonna move here,
I
just
do.
deal with it. You're gonna hear it, and you're gonna hear it at 2 o'clock in the morning until it's closed.
Now, if 12 is too early because Flores, see, we put 12 because Flores concert ends at 12. If I'm incorrect on that, I need to, you know what I mean, and increase that, but I looked at the website, their concerts ends
They
at.
do it at 12? Okay.
At least that's
Yeah.
what it's advertised.
do.
That's great. Can we ask Donnie? Donnie, does Floors concerts close down at 12?
Yes, well, the music normally stops right at midnight.
Music stops-
Sometimes right at 11:45.
But the music stops at, the actual performances stop at midnight
Right, depending on
or
what the
before.
contract reads, they're gonna play for 90 minutes.
Okay.
Sometimes they go on at 10, they play till 11:30. Sometimes they go late, 10:15 when they go on stage, so whatever 90 minutes is after that, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're,
Yeah,
I do.
and the festival's the same way. They end, so those things.
So those are already built in. So,
Before midnight.
I think,
okay. So I think if we, what I hear, what we're going to do is kind of revamp what the construction times are, the exemptions, but and define weekday, Sunday through Thursday, and weekend, Friday and Saturday night, and any night before a federal holiday.
There you go.
Okay.
Well,
Perfect. Okay. All right. This is any other discussion, questions? Requires no action at this point, so we'll move on. Look for a motion and a second for the first reading and discussion on the ordinance listed in item number 16 is written.
I move that we read and discuss item number 16.
I'll second
Okay.
that.
Council members Salazar and Massey.
There was no first or second, and then there's no action.
Oh,
on
that's
that one
right.
as well.
Yeah.
We're just discussing.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. So, Councilmember Salazar, thoughts on item number 16?
Okay, so one of the things that we've brought up before is the idea of having the food truck on a private property, for example, for a party. So party seems to be the theme of this evening's discussion. So I was looking and maybe I just missed it. I couldn't really see anywhere where there was like a delineation or anything for that.
That would be the third item, where the third option is if you pulled a special event permit. If you pulled a permit to have it, then that's the third option. So if you're having.
Okay, so that can be in my driveway, I just have to pull that permit.
Correct.
Okay, and what is the price for the permit?
Right now it's $38.40 or something like that.
That's
No more
a-
than $38.
That's an odd amount.
Yeah, I don't know why. I think what happened was in the past, we always increased it due to the, CPI, and that's why that's a weird amount that.
Gotcha. Okay, so that was kind of what I was looking for.
Okay, I didn't read that this way, and I was actually happy that it wasn't gonna be in private individuals' homes. It also says there are several places where it says that you should not block driveways. So you cannot have it on a driveway.
No, we can't block other people's driveways.
Event means any occasion, I'm looking at the definition. Event, you says, you pick a special event permit. An event means any occasion or activity where one or more vendors offer goods, services, entertainments, amusements, or other like products or activities to the public for profit or for free. To the public. So if you have a private event in your house, is the public gonna be invited?
No.
Okay, well, that definition, I like that definition because I really do not believe that we should allow these on private property unless the private property is 5 acres and they're gonna have it in the back somewhere where no one else, that kind of thing. I mean, I don't think you should have it in someone's little lot house.
So I think for clarification, because that doesn't include, then that might easily be interpreted that this doesn't apply to private property and private parties. And so that might have to be a point of clarification on that. When we were discussing this, if you'll recall, and I'll just bring this up for your consideration, really the crux of this is, do we allow food trucks on somebody's personal property, regardless of size, so we don't get into discrimination on how wealthy you have to be before you can have a birthday party for your kids, or do we not allow them on private property for the benefit of the community? How often does this really happen? And really on property rights. If we're going to have it in a driveway, you can't block somebody's driveway for egress, is how I interpreted reading that statement. The whole point is that you can't have a private thing at your house and block somebody else's driveway. If it's on your own private property, standard property laws state that anybody that's on your property is there by invitation, not open to the public. You can ask people to leave your private property. So really the crux of the conversation comes from one side of not wanting them in the communities at all, the other one's being able to, hey, this is my property, I want to have a party, it's my party, I can eat if I want to, invite whoever I want to. But there was a couple of things for recollection so we don't end up arguing the same points, that the same rules apply to the food trucks at your driveway as they do if they're in the court, which means, or at Old Town, it means there has to be a bathroom for use for everybody. There has to be facilities for dumping and water and all the other requirements of a food truck has to be met. But if you can provide those, if you have sufficient property or amenities to provide those, and you want to have an event, you can have it. However, if you're going to have it, as this is written now, if you're going to have it, at your personal house, you have to apply for a special permit, which would incur that $38 charge and an inspection, because now we have to notify our health inspector that we've got a food event going on that is going to be served to people, whether for fee or not for fee. And so really the crux of the decision is for you guys to decide. As written, they can be held at private property. So the vote for, which we are just discussing at this point, if it came to a vote, would be vote yes to include it, vote no if you don't want it that way, and then if the no's win, then it can be resubmitted for something different.
Again, the definition of event, which I would imagine goes under the special event permit, means that a public has to be invited to this private event. So as written here, I would vote for it. If you change it to say, for someone's private property, I would vote against it. But, I just think that it's, it can be in Old Town, at any of those venues. It can be in a homeowners association venue, which has, you know, the facilities that were required. And it can be in one of the businesses, Walmart or any of these other businesses for public consumption. But to have it in someone's little front yard, I think is a nuisance to their neighbors. I think it's just wrong. If you want to start, to me, if you want to say, okay, their lot has to be a certain size, it has nothing to do with money, because a lot of these smaller lots have gigantic homes that are probably more expensive than some of these other lots. But this has nothing to do with money or someone's income, or whether, because obviously they can afford to have a mobile thing come to their house. The other thing is $38. I think we should charge a lot more than $38 a permit for something like this. I thought we were talking about doing $300.
That's for the mobile, for the permit for the truck. The truck has to do an annual $300 permit.
So a person who wants to have the event just is
Right.
is $38.
Correct.
Okay,
Right.
I got you.
For example, let's say, I remember one of our neighbors had a little petting zoo a little mobile petting zoo, and they brought out some animals in their front yard. That might be a special event permit, that they're having something there to have a prior, you know, some special event that they're having at a particular location would require a special event permit. If you're going to have incorporated in there a function that requires special licensing, well, then that function has to adhere by all the licensing, which may include their permit to be established business, or in the case of a food truck, they have to have their food truck annual permit. They also have to adhere to their health inspections and all those codes. Those are all in a standard. And then on top of that, if you're gonna have it at your house, you gotta have a special event permit, which,
Coats and snow cones.
you know, I know it's deeply divided. I read this as it would be allowed at private property. Frank, do you have as it's written?
As it's written, it would be allowed on private property, but again, as you pointed out, there are certain requirements that they must meet, including bathroom requirements and so forth, for the individual who holds it on private property. It has, you know, it doesn't have an area requirement as to how much space is required, but there are certain requirements that must be met.
Okay, and it doesn't require that you invite the public, correct?
No.
Okay.
Even that definition, the definition of event?
Well, again, when you look at the section specifically with regard to local food establishments associated with a special event permit, so it's with the permit, the individual has obtained this permit, and this establishment may operate on property, you know, and it's specifically, because we created, there's an exception specifically for amenity centers and property owned by the HOA. This section is not in that area. This is for private property. And again, it does state that the property owner must provide restroom facilities and mobile food, you know, obstruct driveway or fire lanes at any time. You know, it does include language with regards to that. But the way the ordinance is written, it would not prohibit someone from a private property owner, a home, from holding this event if they got the permit. And the food truck that they have coming in has the annual permit that's been approved by the city.
I guess I'm having a real hard time envisioning, especially in our smaller subdivisions that have the small lots, where this, if you can't put it on the driveway, where are you gonna put it? In the front of their yard?
Put it in the driveway? If it's my house and my driveway.
Because of the egress, because of the egress of what it says about the driveway.
I know, but I can block my own driveway. I just can't block my neighbor's driveways, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can roll it into my driveway. I could roll it onto my front lawn, as long as it's my property. I feel like I should be able to do what I want.
Directly in front of your house on your parking spot,
Yeah.
on the curb.
Okay.
Yeah, it just shouldn't impede my neighbors. I think that's what's important that we include here.
Are we making a distinction between private property and private property that's in a designated residential area, or are we saying it doesn't matter?
No distinction at this point.
Well, see, and I think there should be. I think it should not be in residential areas.
So where does it say that if you're holding on private property that you will not allow that vendor to service the public from your private property.
What does it?
You see where I see this becomes a slippery slope. I think that's kind of, I'm not sure if that's your point, Cynthia, or not, but for me, I don't want somebody saying, hey, I'm gonna have a private party, I'm gonna pay the $38 every day, and have them technically serving the public from my driveway. If it's something that's purely for, for an event that I'm having, I'm cool with that. I don't have a problem with that. Am I overthinking it? Maybe, but.
No, you're right, that probably needs to be distinguished.
Because I was thinking we wrote that in something like Old Town, where somebody has private property down there, it's probably more a business, but they don't serve food, that they want to have something down on their private property.
Mm-hmm.
But in a residential area, I see it's no different than catering, right? You want to cater an event. It just might not be, it's in a form factor that's a little different than most people, but it's serving your event, nobody else. And I didn't see that language in there. Right? That was my only concern.
I think the intent of how it's written is to not really take a look at this. Let's say you have a party in your backyard, you have a mariachi band over. Okay, you're having an event. So what if you're having music, or if you're serving snow cones for your birthday party at 2 p.m?
It's different. The analogy is not right. This is a mobile business serving food that has all these things. You invite a mariachi band to do us a song, and then leave. That's different.
Well,
It's not
you're
an
talking
event.
about.
That's at a private party, and someone comes and sings, and they leave. That's
Okay,
that's
so
different.
okay. Well, here's a private party that they're coming and catering food, and then they leave. So they still have to abide by the noise ordinance. It can't be late at night causing a ruckus. But in my mind, we're thinking, okay, you have the snow cone truck come over and give birthday kids, serve them snow cones for 2 hours. So as it's written, the intent there is to be able to allow you to do what you want on your own property. Mm-hmm. With respect to the people next door, you can't block there or impede. You got your noise restrictions on that, etc. So it'd be hard for them to, of course, you're within your hours anyways, between 7 and 7. So again, clearly you don't want them to be in residential and make that distinction. So you have that discussion. We're not voting on this at this point. It's just further discussion. Do we allow residential? Do we separate, as it's written right now, private property is not distinguished between residential or anywhere else. It's just be allowed to be anywhere. If it's in the HOA area and if it's in Old Town, it does not require a special use permit. That's the only distinction. However, it is at your house, you are going to have a special use permit, which will, of course, alert the attention of the inspectors, etc., and all that.
But we can add what Craig was saying, if it is in a residential area, that the selling of it. Because I think Craig's concern is if a mobile food truck comes in and tries to use someone's house as a selling point and park there every single day to sell.
Now that would be an abuse
Right.
of what the intent of all this
was
is about.
correct.
And
So that can be added to that
And I've
section.
seen ordinances with regard to that to make sure that doesn't happen is you only allow once
Every so
every
many.
so many months, so that it's not, doesn't become a business, but it's,
No more than once a quarter. Or
Right.
Yeah,
something
so
along
we
those
can,
lines.
we can add that into that section.
That's all. I just didn't want a loophole in there.
Sure. And that makes sense because that's the problem they had down in Leon Valley. Somebody's parking on one spot every single day. And that mimics what we have going on in Old Town. They can't be there 2 nights. They can be there one night at, for example,
No, they can't have more than one food truck.
they can't have more than one food
And we
truck.
even have that written here, they can't have more than one food truck unless they get an event permit, and then at that.
Right. Okay. All right.
I do have one more question
Sure.
if we're done with this topic. So, and this is really directed at you, Frank. So, boy, this is like buried way down in here. 46-19 E3H. We talk about insurance for the vehicle. What about liability insurance for the vendor selling their product or serving that product from their vehicle? most businesses have like a $1 million liability, and what if you get sick on that food? Is that I didn't see that in our permitting process.
That would be held under the regular food truck and business operation.
If that's accounted for, then I'm fine.
Texas
I
requires
didn't see it in this draft, and I didn't know if it needed to be or if it was taken care of
This
in
is
some other
this is
process.
really more about use and allowances at property, and then again, kind of similar. We talked about that. If you're going to bring in a, in this case, a food truck, that food truck still has to abide by the ordinance with the food truck.
Okay, because we talked about vehicle insurance. We didn't talk about liability insurance. If that was my only point.
Texas requires that.
Right.
And that's part of the city adopts a reference to the provisions.
Right, all the Texas codes.
All
So
the
it's
Texas
accounted
code
for.
that's accounted for.
That's my only point. We're good.
Good.
I'm done.
Me too.
Any other thoughts?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll close the discussion on item number 16. There is action on item number 17, so we will take a motion, a second for discussion action on item number 17 is written. Motion by
Mr. Mayor, motion that we take, or we discuss and take action on item number 17.
It's written. Okay. Councilmember.
So I first want to thank staff, Marion and Glenn, who's in the audience, and then the board of directors for all the work and discussions they've had drafting this and going back and forth, and particularly helping out the city with the FM16 expansion and providing those funds there. So that's the only comment I have on this.
So
Correct.
I second what Matt says. And I think in this particular action item, we were also discussing special events that the EDC would cover and the way we go about doing it. And there were some other things that I know the EDC is like, hey, we're not that comfortable about funding that piece of it. And I'm good with that. So I want to thank the EDC for being so involved in all this. I do want to say, though, all those events, whether the city's funding it or the EDC's funding it, have what I would say have ripple effects. So if we get people here for a parade or for Carnival or whatever, money's not, people stick around and shop and they purchase food and so on and so forth. So it's a win-win for everybody with that relationship. So I just wanted to make that point.
Thank you.
No comment.
No comments? No comments?
It's fine.
Okay, that's all right. Well, with no additional discussion, all in favor of approving item number 17 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item number 18, looking for a motion and a second for discussion and action of item number 18 is written.
Mr. Mayor, I motion that we discuss and take action on item 18.
Motion by McCrossin, second by
I'll second.
Councilmember Salazar.
So again, I just want to, highlight between the mayor and staff that I really appreciate the fact that we had the workshop, that this process has taken several iterations, not only to familiarize myself with the budget process, but also all these little things that have changed throughout the several weeks, all the new ideas, trying to get the subscription plan, help out with the finances with the city in terms of the insurance, and then all the little changes. I know that it's a tremendous effort. When these things get done, you think it's done, and then we have an amendment to the budget here. So I appreciate that, and thank you for answering all the questions I had, Marion. Don't know if I annoyed you or not, but I appreciate your time. And that's all I have to say. So thank you.
Yeah, and I echo your sentiments that I appreciated being involved in this budget and understanding it, getting my questions answered. I think it makes it easier for us to discuss, to approve, because I feel like, okay, well now I know what I'm looking at and I understand the reasons behind it as well. So also when constituents come up and ask me about things, I feel like I can speak intelligently on it now, so I appreciate that.
Okay.
I don't have anything significant other than we were all brought into this back in July. And I don't know if that was the standard way of doing business where city council was actually brought in with the department heads in the past. So, so we're sitting up here actually, we have a really good understanding of how the budget is going down. We know there's some shortfalls. We know there's some areas that we weren't able to fund as well as we would like. But, you know, city leadership's aware of that and action will be taken to help get after some of those shortfall areas. So that's my only comment.
So to that point, when I got elected, one of the things I wanted to make sure that we did was increase our transparency, increase our involvement and input from our employees and our division leaders. It came as a shock to me to find out that there wasn't workshops really done in the past, or at least not for quite some time. And it's one of the things we want to do. We've got some great ideas that came out from division heads and being able to identify priorities, and we were able to address those through this process. At least take a bite out of the process, and you know, baby steps as it were.
Look at the budget and see exactly where everything is going. And so it makes my job as a councilman a whole lot easier to explain and endorse this. So thank you, Marion.
Thoughts, questions? All in favor of approving item number 18 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
We have to do individual, it has to be a roll call vote.
Roll call vote, my bad. Okay, so on this one, we're going to do a roll call vote. Right to left. We will start with Councilmember Sanders.
I approve.
Aye. Okay, we have one aye. Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Aye. Councilmember McCrossin.
Aye.
Aye, sir.
And Councilmember Massey.
Aye.
The roll call vote is 5-0. Motion carries. Item number 19, looking for motion to second, discuss and take action on item number 19 is written.
Mayor, I move we discuss and take action on agenda item 19A and B, or can we do this all at
You
once?
have to do each one separate.
Second.
So we will. Two separate motions, or can we take two separate votes?
Two separate motions.
Two separate motions, okay. So for 19A, we have a motion, discussion, take action on item 19A by Sanders, and second?
Second.
Salazar, okay. Any questions? We basically are reducing our property tax here. Well, the maintenance and ordinance is actually, our operations are, this stays the same, our ad valorem.
Just a little because our interest in sinking decreased.
Our interest in sinking.
Overall, it decreased.
Overall, the total amount decreased, correct? 0.343979 is fractionally lower than what it was. This is primarily due to reduction in debt service. Well, we've been paying off some debt. Requires that we reduce that, which we're going to address there really mostly in 19B. The resulting is a slight adjustment in 19A, leaving at 0.281232 cents. Any particular specific questions? Councilmember? Anybody else? Okay, all in favor of approving 19A as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Need a roll call for this? No. Okay. And for 19B, need a motion and a second to discuss and take action as written?
I'll motion that we discuss and take action on 19B as written.
I'll second.
All right. A, B, B, A. Got it. And as just discussed, we are a slight reduction to 0.062747 cents per $100 valuation. netting a net decrease in total property taxes in our ad valorem. Any questions or issues?
No, just wanted to get the ball rolling.
There we go. Craig? Anybody else? All right, all in favor of approving 19B as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Need a motion a second to discuss and take action on item number 20 as written.
I move that we discuss and take action on item number 20 as written.
And a second by
I'll second.
Councilmember?
As we discussed earlier, it was a smidge of a decrease, but we'll take it. And so I'm happy to move forward with it.
Okay. Councilman?
No comments, sir. Moving along. I liked it.
Okay. It's really more or less crossing the T and dotting the I item.
Aye, that's it.
All in favor of approving item number 20 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Which brings to our final item for consideration. Looking for motion a second to discuss and take action on item number 21 as written.
Mayor, I move that we discuss and take action on agenda item 21.
And a second
I'll
by?
second.
All right, the S's have it.
So, can I go?
Yes, sir.
So, I know there had been discussions about changing the fees, and I'm not trying to put, Marion on the spot, but where we actually made the changes, there's no way that, when I look at the document, that it says it went up or it went down, it's just red that says it changed, or am I misreading it?
The red means it went up. Nothing went down.
I thought.
Well, wait a
I
second.
thoued the pool.
Oh, everything went down.
Yeah, so yeah, red means it changed, they were changed. So,
Changed up or down?
For the most part up, with the exception of the ones in, development services, building fees.
yes,
So.
Those
so
went
the-
down.
So the EMS stuff all went up?
all went up, and they hadn't been looked at since,
Years. So perhaps we can break this down in a summary.
yeah.
That's all I'm looking for.
EMS fire charges, ambulance fees were archaic in their charges. We did a review, took a look at what other communities were charging for the identical services, and then we still maintained to be below average or still the lowest, depending on which category. But they were significantly higher than what we were charging for EMS services. We take a look at generically, and of course you have each one. If you want to pull any particular one or ask about specific fees, we can. And development services, permitting for houses, and we, for example, we talked about this before in the budget process. A building permit was granted for 9 months, and then we had a huge fee there was a fee for a 3-month extension, a huge fee for another 3 months, and an astronomical fee.
Mm-hmm.
So we reduced all those instead of 50%, 100%, 200%, and 300% to 0. Extended it to 12 months, so you would get a 12-month building permit, and the fees were reduced to 10, 20,
40, and then 60.
10, 20, 40, and 60%. Our pool fees, for example, could have been as much. It was kind of a little bit of a scale, which you had a bigger pool, you got a bigger fee, which really didn't make a whole lot of sense. So we made it to a mandatory and reduced that fee by a significant amount and set it at a fixed fee of $600, where it could have been as much as $2,000. Now there is a separate, if there's a plumbing permit heated, then it would require that extra fee because of the extra inspection would be required on that. But generally speaking, a lot of the reductions that we did that were just that, reductions. Some increases were on the EMS side, so those were increases. So if there's a particular fee you're looking at, one of the things when Marion and I sat down is I wanted to reduce and try to simplify, or at least make it a little bit more palatable to do business or do stuff around your house. We did reduce some of the overall fees on services, but some of the building permits didn't include fees for the trades. So that was an increase because when we took a look at what our fees were, we were missing standard industry light, especially on the commercial side. They weren't paying for electrical or plumbing, HVAC, so we had to really kind of add those in. For some reason, I can't imagine something slipping by like that under previous guidance. But the idea is I really wanted to present this, and we talked about this in the budget workshops, wanted to gradually decrease the amount of fees instead of nickel and diming people together. Like, for example, the $38.40, why that isn't just a flat 35. We had the CPI adjustment. So long term, hoping we can further reduce, maybe even eliminate some fees. But right now, this is what we got. So we had some significant reductions. EMS was a good example of significant increase.
And excellent rundown, I appreciate it. I just wanted to make sure that people who, when residents see this online or whatever, they realize that a lot of these were reductions and not all increases. And so the way this reads to me, I couldn't tell, so the average person might just think everything went up. So that's just feedback, and awesome rundown, I appreciate that, Mayor.
Generally speaking, we're trying to reduce them under just as we grow and develop and become more financially stable and reserves built up. That provides us to be able to address our employees' contracts as well as reduce the burden on the citizens and businesses. So generally speaking, you'll be seeing reductions. The major exception would be the EMS fees, which were way outdated. If anybody has any specific, we do have Fire Chief here. He can answer that, but
I'm good.
okay.
You got your fees scheduled from surrounding neighborhoods and same size cities or same, yeah.
Chief?
It's gonna blossom into more questions. The billing company that we started working with this past year, they did a survey for me, and so we kind of fall within a few dollars of Leon Valley, Chavano Park, ESD 7 and ESD 2. So
We do now.
yes,
according to
these
this.
new amounts
Gotcha.
will put us right into the what's the acceptable
Going rate.
Say market value
Perfect.
or services. I might want to mention too that 3 years running, each year we've seen almost a 30% increase in medical supply costs.
Yes.
With obviously COVID notwithstanding, but that's plays a lot into how these fees are now being developed.
So is there a plan other than us revisiting this every year to take care of this 30% cost every year in this kind of fee schedule, or is that something you do, or is that something we do?
Well, part of our services from our billing company is that they evaluate what the market trends are constantly, month by month.
Oh, so this can be
At the end of the year,
adjusted.
they give me the same report and they give me a recommendation on whether or not to bring anything to council or what we've got. I don't foresee changes, significant changes, probably for the next 2 years. I think we're caught up with this. And also keep in mind that our uninsured residents here in Helotes is about 7.5%. So the lion's share of these fees are going to people that have health
Right.
insurance that cover
Pay.
a large portion.
Got it. Okay. This looks good.
Thank you, Chief. Have any additional questions? Comments?
So
I
I
got an answer.
actually got one.
Yes, sir.
A few weeks ago, neighbors approached me because they got notice, and I got one too, from ADT about alarm permits, and Bear County, I guess Bear County requires them and we don't. So the confusion I have on the chart here is the fire alarm, new fire alarm system. Is this like a permit fee, or what are?
That's for commercial, the fire alarm permit fee, that's for commercial. We do not have,
Okay.
we don't have a residential home alarm. And when they sent that out, we actually put it on Nextdoor and our website and social media,
Okay.
letting people know that we do not have an alarm permit, residential alarm permit.
That's good.
So we don't need to say like specifically in this is for commercial only. No? Okay.
Yeah, because you don't have a fire alarm, that's just the ADT is a residential alarm, and it says that on there. The fire alarm would only commercial would know that that's what, you
Okay.
know.
Okay, that's the only question I had.
Okay. Anybody else?
No, I'm
No,
good.
sir.
Okay. All in favor of approving our fee schedule as listed in item number 21 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. So finally, Glenn. We wanted to make you suffer. This will be a staff report, item number 2, a report by the City of Helotes Economic Development Corporation for our fiscal year ending 2021. Glenn, take it away. Thank you.
First, it's an honor and privilege to be here tonight to represent Helotes EDC. We thought it was a good time with you approving our new budget and recapping what we've done this fiscal year for 2021. And they should be included in your packets. Obviously, there's been a lot of change with the EDC. I know we have 4 new board members within the last year. They do, I love the makeup that we have. We have a lot of local business owners, so there's a lot of expertise on the board, which is a really good makeup. Everybody, there's discussion amongst all 7 of our board members at our meetings, and I think it helps us develop better policies and projects moving forward. The board did, at our last meeting, approve our fiscal year budget that you saw tonight. And thank you for your positive feedback and seeing that we are trying to work with both the city and bring in potential new business, especially with the right-of-way acquisition. Thought that was a good opportunity moving forward, even though there's a lot of ETJ land in that area that could be potentially annexed for commercial. One of the big marketing things that we did, obviously, was launching a new website this year. There's a promotional video. It's in our Helotes overview right now in tab. As soon as the e-commerce grant is taken off the homepage, the video is going to be the prominent feature. And showing kind of all the growth in the area, the traffic. It helps kind of on the selling standpoint that it's not such a small town. That's one of our taglines we developed a few years ago. Small town charm, 1.5 million neighbors. To kind of give you a perspective, we're not in the States. We have, over the last year, we continue to support local events. It's through Helotes Marketplace, Helotes Volleyball. We even sponsored the Volleyball Festival itself, and we sponsored the Helotes .5K that the Chamber produces. It's been about a year and a half or a little over. We've had our first in-person conference. It was in Austin, Retail Live. We bring together a lot of prospects, retail tenants that are looking to expand here in Texas. There's plans to have more in the near future. That is the first in person. So it was nice getting people obviously back together, seeing deals are happening a little bit slower. There's still a lot of caution out there, especially on the employment side. But things are looking up. So I was able to talk to about 15 prospects that have interest in this general area. There's a couple that have already, honestly, just signed leases. About 1604, but quite a few of these still come in the lowest. We developed a co-marketing program at the beginning of the year that really focused on digital billboards along 1604. There's a couple down in Bay Area, 410. And we had 13 businesses that submitted for that. And there's a list of them. We also launched a second round of small business grants. During the first round, we were able to help 18 businesses. On the second round, we kind of expanded the scope of the program and allowed a few nonprofits to apply. So we were able to assist 23 businesses with that one. We just launched in July of this year the e-commerce grant program. Noticing, obviously, our sales tax has been increasing, and analyzing that, a lot of it is due to e-commerce sales. So those businesses here in Helotes that do not have a presence are even more at a disadvantage than they were prior to COVID. So this program was developed to help them get caught up and get set up for future success. Right now, we've only had 5 applicants apply. There was some concern with some of the businesses on the timing of launching because of our fiscal year being September and then new funding in October 1. So the EDC did decide to reissue this program, and we will have quite a few more applicants this next fiscal year.
May I ask a question about this? I'm noticing that at least a couple of these, or one of them, is a member of the EDC, a director. How do you, does this person recuse himself from his vote?
So this program was actually approved before he was appointed to the board, and so he applied he applied before he was on the board of directors.
Okay, so now that
So
he is.
he's now on the board. So I know it's been given to the attorney for an opinion, and it wasn't deemed as a conflict of interest because of the timing.
That he could not vote if they were gonna increase or do anything now, he would not be allowed to vote, he would have to recuse himself. But since all the action took prior to him being on the board, there was no conflict at that time.
But it hasn't been voted on yet, has it?
No, it has. It was
Yes, he
already-
applied.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
it was prior.
They received it already.
And the same thing with the co-marketing program for the advertising. I noticed that one of the individuals is on the board on Pubs Cleaners. Is this a new program? Is this
That was,
something?
No,
that was
that-
prior to.
That was prior.
That was also prior.
Yes.
And we've had a lot of changes.
That's one thing about, it is good to have business people on the EDC, but then this type of situation is gonna start arising, so we might wanna look at the makeup of the EDC, put some people in there who are not necessarily in the business
They either
community.
have to abstain from voting or they cannot participate in the program.
I understand. Okay.
We've already had one that couldn't participate in the program, correct?
We've got several currently that cannot, like, Hope's Cleaners cannot participate. She reached out and asked about the e-commerce program. And she's not able to
Right.
participate because she voted on it.
I see. Okay.
And same thing goes for one of Greg Hayden and his company. But you're right, that is a concern and we're definitely aware of it.
Okay.
I think it's worth mentioning, we're working with volunteers across the board, right? But we have to watch out for conflict of interest for sure. But we also want to penalize somebody because they're volunteering their time to help the city. So in this particular case, if something's been voted on that one, it was already passed, they were already, and then they subsequently got selected, to penalize them because they stood up to help would be also a disservice, right?
I understand that. I just want everyone to be aware because, we just need to be aware of this kind of thing. We need to be careful, that's all.
The EDC also is continuing with their partnership with the Helotes Chamber and helping plan events to assist our local businesses, either through networking events or through educational workshops. Obviously during 2020, most of that stuff was closed down and everything's been opened back up. They've had 12 events, I think 2 more networking are planned, and then there's 3 workshops on that one. The EDC also participated with the chamber on a gift card give back program at the beginning of the year in March. Supported that with $10,000. Ended up putting over $25,000 back into the Helotes community. Both supporting local businesses and then majority of the purchasers, I guess, of the gift cards were Helotes residents. Program that we've done a few times and we saw a need to kind of reissue it was the Google 360 Business Tour. We've got we partnered with 360 Zone to perform those. He gives us a phenomenal deal, way below market price. The program this year, we exhausted funds of $8,000 for that. And we were able to help 22 businesses, keep over 325 features those businesses to get in professional shops to be able to market, as well as getting them listed in Google Maps, and then have a 360 tour that we can use on our own website. And there's a list of all forward, we're looking at developing new targeted incentives for both attraction and local expansion of development. One of the programs currently under consideration is a tenant improvement matching grant. Probably the biggest question, or not really a question, a comment that I get from prospects is the cost of developing in Helotes as compared to surrounding areas. And tenant, like lease rates are more expensive, construction is the same, but one way we can't really affect the market on the tenant rate, but we can assist with finish out. And that's kind of the focus behind the tenant improvement grant, is to do a matching grant. The final dollar amount is yet to be determined, and then that program will be come before you for a final vote. And then a lot of the prospects we're not able to present to the public until those deals are done. I know the mayor asked at least maybe providing some type of framework to know what industries that are legitimate prospects that we're currently working with. And so I did on here, we have food services is the primary sector, followed by retail trade, and then fitness, healthcare, finance and insurance. And there is a grocery prospect that's still trying to locate here in Helotes. One of the other things Mayor asked was do an inventory that everyone could be aware of the available properties here in Helotes, both for commercial space and land. We currently have about 14 spaces available in Helotes. I do know there's a few that I just got a report, that last space, the 14108, which is Legacy next door to GP Mills. He just signed 3 leases this week. So spaces do change rather quickly. Even at Retail Live, I learned 2 of the spaces in the center with, it's called Helotes Country Crossing 2 with Babes Hamburgers. There's 2 spaces on the market. Both those leases were signed at Retail Live. So things are definitely moving in the right direction. There's a lot of interest. Some of the ones that are currently on the market may have some cons associated with the space, whether it's visibility or lack of parking and so forth. So we're just trying to find the right tenant mix. In the land, even though there's actually a lot of land in the area, not everything is actively being listed on the market. We currently have 5 parcels. The 8.76 acre tract at the top has an offer pending on the tract. 1.34, I think it's just a price point. I think it's realistic. The 10.86 acres is under contract. The problem 32 acre tract at the corner of Scenic Loop and Bandera, it's not actively being promoted, but there is interest in that lot. And then we have one off of Leslie Road that was under contract and it's now not. So we'll see. And that's the Old Reeves roofing property. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate all that y'all are doing, and I know it's a task going forward, figuring out exactly what we can do, and I appreciate all your hard work and the board. As our president of the EDC there, thank you for coming on out. Wayne, good to see you. Any other questions, issues, thoughts?
No, appreciate the report.
All right. In that case, we will go ahead and adjourn at 8:34.
Battery last?
Mayor, I hope Christian Stafford wasn't one of the players we were hoping to.
He is.